actually leads to possible cancer?
Well, Jesse, I can tell you one thing for sure, which is that it's time to call big food out on their sweet lies. We are seeing cancer in huge amounts now in young adults and people who are my age. And as a teen myself, I am not surprised because sugar is the new cigarette for cancer when it comes to my generation. We are the ones buying Frappuccinos, snacking on cereals, and eating sugar all day and then told to just take Ozempic as a quick fix. It's so wrong. Coca-Cola funds millions to national health organizations like the American Cancer Society to try to convince us that their high fructose corn syrup filled foods aren't going to make us sick. We know that's not true. And we also know that cancerous cells have a massive appetite for sugar. So I am here to fix this.
But when I learned about this connection between epigenetics and food, it really changed the way that I thought about how we develop chronic disease. Because the truth is, the way that our health system is set up in America is we are made to, when we get sick, just stay a little bit better, but we stay sick. We never really get better. And they don't want us healthy, but they also don't want us to die. So it's this weird in between. And we're not focused on prevention at all, which whatever cure you could ever fathom for a chronic disease is like, it's never going to be as impactful as just preventing the disease from ever happening in the first place. Like, what kind of research are we really getting if it's being funded by people who want a specific answer? We're not going to be getting stuff that's genuinely going to help our health if this is what like the basis is. So
go to a very different school. It's called Alpha and it's in Austin. And I joined the school when I was in 5th grade. So I used to go to public school, then I came here, and Alpha is honestly, I give like all of the credit to them when it comes to me being able to even produce my documentary and do all the things that I've been able to do today. They basically have taught all of the students that we are completely limitless by giving us a ton of time in the afternoons, if you're in the high school program, to work on a super ambitious world-class level project.
All right. Welcome, guys. I am so excited to have Grace Price on today. If you guys have been paying attention to what's going on in the world of really go-getter 18-year-olds in the world, then you will know Grace. And I just showed you that little 2-minute kind of introduction. She has been out and about. The documentary came out about a week and a half ago. Am I close?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And she says her life has gotten quite a bit busier ever since. In fact, she even told me earlier today that she's already had some introductions to hopefully our future vice president. So that's pretty exciting. So welcome, Grace. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, well, thank you so much for having me, Dr. Hank. It's a pleasure to be here. Well, I am an 18-year-old student and I graduate this year. I am on a mission to flatten the curve of cancer cases by 2040 for my generation. And I basically want to cut them in half. And the way that I want to do that is by showing people that ultra-processed foods are the new cigarette for my generation. So I have a lot of work to do, but I've started by releasing my first documentary called Cancer, a Foodborne Illness that I released exclusively on X. And it received about over 4 million views in the first week of release. Wow. So I was very excited about how well that was doing so far. And as of right now, I'm just promoting the documentary, and I started building my first app that I'm going to release for teens, where teens will be able to kind of join the anti-big food coalition where there will be petitions to sign. We'll be calling out, Kellogg's, General Mills. There will be a really cool AI feature where you can snapshot the food in front of you and it'll tell you how many cigarettes that is equivalent to when it comes to
that is cool.
cancer risk.
I love it.
It's going to be really cool. And more to come. So I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me, part of my journey for the past few years has been going plant-based, and then that's migrated into really focusing on the pesticides. And I know you're aware of glyphosate, Zeranol, atrazine, all those. But one of the things those guys talk about is a sausage equals 10 cigarettes. So it's funny that you keep mentioning the reference to the cigarettes as being the, processed foods are class 1 carcinogens. And if it wasn't for the power of the meat industry, when you went to that processed food section in the grocery store, there would be warnings up above it, just like that are on cigarettes.
It's true. It's
Yeah.
100% true. But we don't treat it the same way. We have basically our entire country addicted to these foods, and yet we are just feeding the addiction every single day, and we're actually ensuring that our kids are hooked on this addiction from the minute they're born. Babies are given baby formula with vegetable oils in it that we already know the entire process of creating those can lead to harmful oxidized polyunsaturated fatty acids. So it's not good at all, and we need to change.
So let's go back a little bit. Not every high schooler I know has aspirations to flatten the cancer curve. Where did this come from?
Yeah, so, it actually started back when I was in 6th grade, I think, when my parents showed me the documentary Fed Up. And this was the first time I was ever introduced to the idea that one, sugar is bad. I know that's kind of like common sense, but when you're a kid, you don't really think about that. And so when I was in 6th grade, that was the first time I was like, whoa, eating too much candy is actually like really, really bad, not just rot your teeth bad. And so that was the first thing that showed me. And what really blew my mind about it is they actually said that the reason why these kids in the film were struggling with obesity is because of their diet. So I was like, whoa, I really want to be careful with how much of this sugar I'm eating. So because I go to a really unique school, which I'm sure we'll touch on a little bit more in a second, but I had the opportunity to give like a little small TED talk to my peers where I measured out the amount of sugar in a Coke. And that was like where it all started for me. I was getting up in front of them. Kids hated me. They were like, what are you doing? Coke is great. Why are you hating on it? And I was like, hey, don't shoot the messenger. I'm just here to show you what I found.
Don't shoot the messenger. That's kind of like my byline these days.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was my first kind of experience with all of this craziness.
Now,
But then,
was this kind of new to your parents? Did they go through a change or because you mentioned 6th grade, so you were already in the family for 12 years at that point, roughly, right?
yeah. And so my mom is already in the health industry. She owns her own deep tissue massage company called Austin Deep, where she really focuses on healing people through healing their fascia. It's all super interesting. And so she's very into like anatomy and physiology and has kind of encouraged me, to pursue more of a scientific path.
And I would assume diet's part of that part of her sphere.
Of
Yeah.
course. Of course. Yeah. Diet, exercise. She's the most fit person I know. Super, super fit. And then my dad, on the other hand, he is the researcher of the family. The minute COVID vaccines came out, number one thing he was looking into every single day, reading every paper about it. And so them together, they really encouraged me to start doing my heavy research, which I decided to do in high school around my sophomore year. After I had lost a loved one to cancer, I started asking some questions to myself, like, well, is this disease really genetic? Is it random? Am I going to get it in my lifetime? These things that kind of go through your head whenever someone else you love gets sick and it kind of happens out of nowhere. Because he was not that unhealthy of a dude, but
This was your grandfather, right?
yes,
Yeah.
but he didn't really eat right. And it was a little sudden, all of it. He was diagnosed, and then I think it was a week later he passed.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, that really got me thinking about a lot of different things that I had never bothered to think about before, specifically surrounding cancer, which was almost like a foreign disease to me. And so that's when I decided in my high school, I'll talk a little bit about Alpha now. So I go to a school called Alpha High in Austin, and we basically believe that all kids are limitless. And we do all of our learning in 2 hours in the morning on AI applications. And that means our science, math, language, that's all done in 2 hours so that in the afternoon, we can learn life skills for the K-8 program. And then for the high school program, we pursue a super ambitious, like world-class level project. So
Wow.
I decided sophomore year.
So back up a second. So does that mean no science teachers per se? You have like overseers or something like that, and then you let technology do the teaching?
Yeah, so we really believe that because we live in the age of information and these AI apps are so adaptive now and good at mastery-based learning that a kid can seriously learn in 2 hours in the morning and 2 times as fast as the average high school student just by using these. So we don't have any teachers. We do have guides in the building who are just, adult supervisors and stuff, but it really is a student-led education.
Wow. Do you have exams?
We do. We believe in standardized testing just because it's a way to show that we
Right.
are mastering content. But yeah, it's incredible, and I totally credit a lot of my entire project to it. I wouldn't have been
Wow,
able
you're
to.
like, you should be their spokesperson.
Oh my
I
gosh,
mean,
maybe
is
I'll
it,
talk about
it
that.
must be a private school, not a charter school then. I had this idea it was probably going to be a charter school.
Yeah, so right now, I mean, it's a startup, but it is basically a private school.
Yeah.
However, we do plan on scaling it eventually. So,
Oh, how
we
cool.
have a location actually in Brownsville right now that is just absolutely killing it. And so, yeah, there's a lot of really cool opportunity behind it. And I hope that one day every kid has access to a school like this. And I do
So
believe
Alpha what?
Alpha School,
Alpha
but I
School
go to
in
Alpha
Austin
High
or
School.
Alpha High. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Wow, what a testimony for the high school. So let's get back to curing cancer. So, what would be like the path that you're going to try to take here? How do you envision the next 4 to 10 years of your life?
Yeah, I mean, right now, I'm really looking at this as like each step of the way that I need to take to get to this massive goal of cutting cancer cases in half. And right now, I do have some big things that are fighting against my goal,
Right.
like the big food conglomerates, and also the fact that we're kind of running out of time here. I mean, the most recent study that was published, came out and said that cancer cases have increased by 80% in people under the age of 50 in the past 3 decades. So that's really alarming. And then you also see the American Cancer Society came out with the stat that 2 million plus people are going to have new cancer cases this year. And also that colon cancer incidences have increased more in people under the age of 50 than in people 65 plus. So all of this is really crazy for a disease that many people believe is kind of reserved for the elderly and for people who just have an unlucky gene that they
Right.
inherited or a genetic mutation. And so,
Epigenetics, girl.
yeah,
That's
exactly.
the
And
intro for
so
epigenetics.
So epigenetics, that was a big part of my project, but I really want to focus on my generation. I want to get every single person in my generation to understand that these foods are the next cigarettes for us. And if we don't make a change now, it's going to be too late. So that's why I'm trying to build this app. I'm also expanding onto TikTok. And most importantly, I'm attending a new school that opened up called UATX in Austin. It's the University of Austin, Texas. And they believe in the pursuit of truth. And they also are huge advocates for protecting freedom of speech and freedom of discussion and civil discourse. So I think that the college is going to be amazing, especially because they are going to give me the time also to work on my project in the afternoon. Because many people are like, "Oh, Grace, why are you even going to college? You should just keep working on what you want to work on." And I'm like, "Don't worry, I am. Like, this is my life's mission." But at UATX, I'm actually given the opportunity to work on that and connect with their incredible network. So it's going to be a really great opportunity.
Cool. Wow. Yeah, I mean, this conversation could go in so many different directions. I love epigenetics. I talk about epigenetics every single day to my patients, especially since, I'm an OBGYN, so I see maybe 15 to 20 pregnant people a day. And
Wow.
I try to see them in the very beginning of pregnancy. But of course, the best time to see them is 6 months before they get pregnant, or
Mhm.
frankly, whenever I see them. I mean, called lifestyle change. But
Yeah.
the whole concept of epigenetics, and I like to talk about how they've done these studies where you can do lifestyle changes and diet changes, and it has an effect not only on the patient, on the pregnancy, and the child, but
Mhm.
possibly, definitely the grandchildren and possibly the great grandchildren.
Yeah.
That is how wild the
Yeah.
whole epigenetics has.
Transgenerational inheritance. It's
Right,
crazy.
exactly. So why don't you, since I'm guessing most of the people listening right now really don't know what we're talking about, why don't you define epigenetics for us?
Yeah, I would love to. On the most like simplified level, I would say that epigenetics are pretty distinct when compared to our DNA because one, the changes that are epigenetic aren't permanent. In DNA, we know, I mean, we inherit it and you kind of get what you get. You don't throw a fit and that's it. You have that and it's stuck as it is. But epigenetics are constantly changing. And the reason why is because they're impacted by our environment. So a way to imagine this is on our DNA, we have these little chemical tags, and these tags have the power to turn a gene on or off. And all that it means is that whether if a gene is on, it's actively being expressed and it's impacting the cell by coding for a specific protein that then is going to be created or something like that.
Right.
Um, versus
The way I define it is a unit of DNA is a gene, and by definition, a gene is something that produces a particular product. You know, either a
yes,
protein or an enzyme or something.
sure,
And,
yep,
and the idea is you can have up to like a 200-fold change in the expression of this gene.
yes,
So it's not that the gene changes, but what the gene produces can change,
and
both
change.
good and bad. So yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Exactly. And so what's interesting about epigenetics and cancer is that there actually is research that shows that certain foods can cause epigenetic alterations to our cells that lead to cancer proliferation by either overexpressing oncogenes. So these are genes that we know lead to cancer proliferation, or suppressing tumor suppressor genes. And these are genes like TET2 or something, for example, that are really great for just preventing all of the hallmarks of cancerous cells and tumor formation. So when you eat things that are high in polyphenols, like a lot of berries and some vegetables have these, they're antioxidants. These can have really positive effects on tumor suppressor genes, and then kind of negate all of those bad cancer proliferative effects that bad foods can have. But another interesting thing too, like with bad foods, one study that I read that was really interesting was talking about how I think it was type 1 diabetics in a hyperglycemic state whenever they had a lot of glucose in their bloodstream, a specific tumor suppressor gene was totally suppressed because of the high glucose state. And then oncogenes were expressed. So it's like things like that, where, I mean, a hyperglycemic state, a lot of us are in that a lot of the times during a week, because we just eat so much sugar. So it's crazy things like that where our cells are constantly reacting and they can become cancerous. So yeah, I think it seems a little abstract at first, but making that connection clear has been fun. And I'm a huge nerd when it comes to epigenetics. So I've looked into this a lot surrounding cancer, and it's really cool.
The two terms that I talk about all the time are epigenetics, and the other one is the microbiome.
Yes.
That is the other area that has really gotten me excited. If you don't know her yet, I'll introduce you to Dr. Sabine Hazen. Does name mean anything to you? All right.
Yes.
Well, I like to, she's the one who's got the toy that can evaluate your microbiome very easily. And, I even actually wrote a children's book called Happy Bugs. And it's a Toy Story model talking about bifidobacterium, lactobacillus, and eubacteria that live inside a little 4-year-old's colon. And her food choices are making them happy or less happy. So it's really a book for the parents and the grandparents. So between the microbiome and epigenetics and how the impact of our lifestyle, and it's interesting, I was just reading something this morning that I'm sure you've come across, is not only does the toxins and diet and exercise, but actually interactions. They've done these mice studies where, the parent mices have been separated from the pups. So they've grown up without attention, and the genes have changed, to the point where those pups children's have the same deficiencies in, I think it was an anxiety suppressor
It
gene.
was,
specifically.
it was
Okay.
anxiety. Yeah,
Yeah,
their ability
yeah.
to manage anxiety. Yeah, those studies are so crazy. Oh my
So it's
goodness.
not just diet, it's not just toxins, exercise, but it's also interaction or love. You could
Yeah.
call it that, or love or affection. So it's
Hmm.
wild. Cool. So so you're getting the app going, you're promoting the documentary. Obviously, everybody watching this has to watch the documentary. It's all over X. I think I've seen it 3 times now. How long did it take you to actually make that?
It took me around 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you got connections to oh, I'm gonna blank out now. Callie, I forget his last name. And he
Yeah,
was just with Bobby Kennedy last week on his podcast. So
he was.
he's really getting out and about too now
Yeah.
since he's been on Tucker. That's the next stop for you, probably.
Oh
Has,
my gosh.
has
If
Tucker
Tucker's
contacted you
watching
yet?
this right now, I would love to be on your podcast. No, Callie is such a powerhouse, and having him in my documentary was huge. I was able to actually intern at his company last summer,
He's in
TrueMed.
Austin. I think he's in Austin area too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
that's what I thought.
he lives in Arizona, but he
Okay.
comes down to Austin a lot. And TrueMed is super cool too. They are helping people use HSA and FSA funds to basically pay
Or-
for all of these health products like good food, exercise equipment, which is great because that is medicine. So it should qualify as that. And we should be able to pay with untaxed dollars for it. So it's really cool.
Right. Wow. So what do your parents think about all this? What are the conversations around the dinner table like?
Honestly, they're so fun. I feel
Yeah.
so supported by my parents because whether it's me like totally nerding out about a specific paper that I read that day, or me just being like, guys, I think I need to go fly somewhere for a podcast, they are always in and super engaged. So I've been really grateful for that because I had to travel across the country to interview some of these experts for the documentary, and also now with the podcasts. I mean, and I love it. I love getting to travel and meet these people where they film because it's all such an incredible opportunity. But yeah.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, did they have any idea that it was going to take off like this?
I asked them that and I'm not sure.
I mean,
I
that's what's so fun about technology these days. Because I think back when I was your age, 100 years ago, and I had the same dreams and aspirations, but we didn't have the technology like this to get the word out so easily. That's what's so wild about it.
yeah.
And it was more just who you interacted with your friends, unless you happen to live in LA and had some media type connections. So it's just so wild. And there's so many negative influences with technology. How refreshing to have such a positive one and actually making a change.
100%. And I think that also kind of goes back to the message that we have at Alpha, but like all of these kids who are interested in pursuing truth and becoming an activist of any sort, like now is the time to do that. And when you're a kid too, adults are so interested in helping you and hearing what you have to say. Like adults
Oh,
think it's so cool.
absolutely.
If you're genuinely, doing the research, putting the work in, adults love that kind of stuff. And so I like my message to every teen out there too, if you're interested in, seeing change in an industry or somewhere that you're really passionate about, like go for it. You can do it. And if you build an audience on social media, that's the most powerful thing you can do because
Absolutely.
without having built my audience on X before releasing the documentary, it totally would not have done well.
Now,
So
I don't know this for sure. Do you have a website? You must have a website up by
I
now, right?
do. Yeah, I have cancer foodborne.
Traveling Genes, or what's it called?
I have two. I have a travelinggenes.com one, and then I have one for the film itself where you can go and support all of the different incredible people that I was able to interview. So Dr. Kate Shanahan is about to release her brand new book, Dark Calories. And so that is a really cool one if y'all want to check that out. Callie Means and his sister Casey just released or about to release Good Energy, their book, which is really cool, all about metabolic health. And then you can support Dr. Seafried too by donating to the Foundation for Research on Metabolic Therapies for Cancer.
Cool. Has Children's Health Defense reached out to you yet?
Not yet.
All right, we got to get that connection.
That would be Really cool though.
Oh yeah, like I texted you. I will be surprised if you're not contacted by the campaign. If you're in, I mean, I know it's always a trade-off, right? Because you want to keep your message kind of as clean and simple as you can. And but boy, it's just so consistent with everybody at Children's Health Defense. I mean, you're familiar, I'm sure, with Zen Honeycutt. I just met her a couple months ago, and I interviewed her a couple of weeks ago. And again, an example of a mom. She was a fashion designer in Manhattan, and then
Wow.
she had a child who ended up getting sick, and then everything changed, and she became an
Yeah.
advocate, and she started Moms Across America, and now she has thousands of people that can create enough leverage to actually accomplish something. Like, how
Yeah.
cool would it be for you to actually start making some corporate change on the cereals? Or, I mean, what would be the first focus? Is it more on labeling? Is it, I mean, in a perfect world, we'd get rid of the stuff, but we do live in a free society. So, what's the solution? Is it education? Is it labeling?
Yeah, right now, I believe that it's education and just getting the companies to admit the connection between the specific ingredients in the foods that they're selling us to these chronic diseases. I think that's the first step. And I mean, when you see like Coca-Cola, they sell, everyone knows Coca-Cola in their drinks has high fructose corn syrup, and then if we look at fructose and its connection to cancer and the fact that it basically has the exact same effects on our liver as alcohol does, except it just doesn't, get us drunk. And so it like things like that, where I'm like, it would be nice maybe for them to recognize that and allow consumers to know that before they make the purchasing decision. It's just something that we should hold them accountable for because it is going to seriously change the trajectory of our futures.
Right. And also get the education out there about the corruption behind the
Precisely.
promotions,
Yes.
because subsidizing the medical schools and subsidizing the studies, like Bobby likes to talk about a lot. If the free market just did its thing, many of these things wouldn't be as prominent, or as Callie talked about with promoting it for food stamps and things like that, and
Yeah.
using corrupt, and big money methodologies to enhance it, right?
Yeah. No, it's true. And trying to financially incentivize, healthy eating. And also, like you said, it's all the subsidized things. I mean, even just when you look at like, I've been looking into oils a lot too, because I just was curious actually how much more it would cost a restaurant if they wanted to just switch to extra virgin olive oil or avocado oil versus all of these seed oils. And the biggest issue is just these seed oils are so prominent because they are the most subsidized. And so,
Right.
it's a little bit cheaper, but it's really not that much more either if you were to switch to the healthier oils.
Yeah.
And that's why I think the education piece still always comes into play because until people realize the depth of the effects of this, you don't really get the need to change. Otherwise, you just go for the cheaper option.
Right. There's a great book out there called Metabolical, and it talks about all the money's put in to make the fast food recipes more addictive. The casomorphins, the glutamorphins,
Yeah.
and and again, I mean, power, money, it's always the motive, but the fact that these things are subsidized by our government, it's right up there with tobacco science type of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I am running out of time, and so we've got like 2-3 minutes left. What would you like to focus on? What do you really want to hear people to hear? Go to your website. I mean, is there a place where kids can start signing up, or anybody can start signing up, so that you start getting a group with some leverage?
Yeah, I actually am going to start a sign up list for the app, like a wait list very soon.
Mhm.
But kids can go ahead and follow me on TikTok because I know that's where they are. Not a lot of kids are on X, unfortunately.
Right.
And so on TikTok, I'm just traveling genes underscore. And you can see everything that I'm putting out there. I'm also clipping up the documentary and putting it on there as well. So you can basically just watch it in bite-sized versions if you
Cool.
want to. Yeah, and that's basically what I would say.
Now, when do you graduate?
I graduate in May.
Okay, so coming right up then. Well,
It is.
congratulations. Again, your parents must just be beaming.
Aw,
So, and I hear your sister's writing a Broadway play.
she is. Yes. She's amazing. She's creating
So
the first.
she's how much younger?
She's 15 right now, so we have about like a 2.5 year age
Writing a
gap.
Broadway play.
Casually. Yeah.
Great. Well, this is great. I hope we can meet up again and we'll keep updating with your progress. But boy, it's just you just in a world where there can be a lot of negative and a lot of cynicism and corruption, you're like such a breath of fresh air.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's been such an honor to be on the podcast. I had a great time discussing all of these things with you.
All right. Very good. Thanks, Grace.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. You don't have to go. Let me just